Hello, happy Saturday if you are watching this on the day that it goes up. If you're not, I hope whatever day it is for you, it is very nice. This video is slightly less structured than my previous couple, so it's taken me a while to really get into starting to talk. I think before I started speaking there's about 30 seconds of me just sat sort of G'ing myself up for this. If you've stumbled across this video by accident and you have absolutely no idea who I am, my name's Hannah. I am a historian and exhibition manager based in the south of England, but I talk about on here theatre and books and history and all the things that really interest me. So if that sounds like something that you'd be interested in, stick around. I tend to chat quite a lot. These are very sort of talky videos. If you have been here before, if you are a returning viewer, then hello, thank you for coming back. I know at the end of my last video I said I was decorating for Christmas last weekend and I was going to do some lovely time lapses of me making my flat all festive. I did try that. I very quickly realised it was not massively aesthetically pleasing. It was just a day of me with my hair sort of scraped up in a messy bun, desperately trying to get my flat looking as nice as possible. So I will insert some nice clips here of it all finished, with all the lights going and everything like that, but it's not going to be a sort of let's get festive, get decorating video, but I did want to include them because I am impressed with how my trees look. And if you are still here after that, I will talk a little bit about what today's video is going to be, which is finally going to be something a little bit more book related. I think at the beginning of every single one of my videos, I've talked about how much I love books and reading, but I've not actually talked about them at all outside of the context of sort of going to see shows based on books or going to an exhibition based on books. So today I just want to talk about books, because I feel like it's overdue. And what I kind of wanted to talk about today is the fact that I've not read as much this year as I usually do. So I do track my reading. I use Storygraph, the app, to track my books. And I also have this, which is my reading journal. I've had this going for a couple of years now with varying levels of success. What I generally tend to track in here is what I'm reading at that exact time and how much I've read per day. So I'll show you a good page spread. I hope you can see this. But this is March and April of this year. And it just sort of shows what books I was reading. It's colour coded. And then I write what page I'm on at the end of every day. This is not a great example of this year's reading, because April I was clearly on a mission, but yeah, as the year's gone on, you can see it there with August, I've not been reading anywhere near as much as I usually do. And I usually put quite a bit of pressure on myself with reading. I think it's because during the pandemic I started up my Bookstagram, and I was originally going to start a YouTube channel then, but I was too nervous, so I didn't. And it was at the time when everyone was starting a Bookstagram and everyone was reading sort of 10 books a month or 100 books a year or something ridiculous, which at the time felt quite intimidating. So I started reading more as a way of sort of just getting back into reading again, because up to that point I wasn't reading consistently anyway. And it did really good things for me joining Bookstagram, but I did always feel like there was a lot of pressure and there was a lot of reading to say you were reading rather than actually sort of taking books in. So I set my reading goal this year at 50 books, which I did manage last year. And I am nowhere near hitting it this year because I've decided I'm going to start reading books at a more sort of sensible pace for me. I know there are people who can read quick, and this isn't me knocking anyone who can read really quick. I'm actually quite jealous because I've got so many books I want to read. It would be helpful for me to be able to read really quickly and actually digest what was on the page, but I'm just not like that. So I set my goal at the beginning of this year as the same as last year at 50 books. And at the beginning of the year, I was really on track for that. And then I got to the summer and I thought, no, I'm not actually going to do this because, yes, I can say I've read all these books, but I actually couldn't tell you what a lot of them were about because I was just reading to get them done. It was a sort of means to an end. So I've changed my reading habits. I haven't adjusted my goal. I'm definitely not going to hit 50 this year. I think I'm on 32 at the moment. And it is now sort of middle to end of November. So the chances of me reading 20 books in a month is slim to none. I'll get a couple more books done for sure, but I'm definitely not going to be reading 20. And as well, I found that I was actually stopping myself from doing things because I was reading so much. So I'd be out in public wanting to do something and be like, oh, I've got to get my book out, got to get a couple more pages in. And that's just not great. It actually put me into a bit of a reading slump for a while because I got to a point where I was like, I actually don't want to read anymore, which obviously I do. But at that point, it felt a little bit like I was reading for the sake of it, which is not the point I wanted to get to. I think my priorities have changed when it comes to reading now as well. This past year, if you've seen my Instagram, you'll notice that a lot of the books I read are sort of not in the charts. They're not super popular. There's very few other people reading them because I just don't really love and again, this is no knocking people who like these books or the authors, definitely not knocking the authors. Not a big fan of fantasy series. I do like fantasy. I think my favourite books of the past couple of years have been the Six of Crows duology, which is fantasy, but I'm not a big fan of anything that markets itself as romantasy. That is not something I ever really look for. I'm not a big fan of ACOTAR adjacent stories or ACOTAR. They're just not books that I can ever see myself reading. So I think taking the pressure off reading for me this year has been a big priority. It's been a shift towards the end of the year for sure, because I'm now reading what I want at a pace that's sensible and actually sort of enjoying consuming the book, not just reading it front to back really quickly. I actually didn't know if I was going to make a video on this because I feel like it almost sounds like I'm knocking people who can read really quickly or like specific type of books, and I'm not at all. I've just found that me as a reader and me as in a lot of ways is not the same as everyone else. And I do think there's been a bit of a narrative recently on things like TikTok and Instagram where reading has become a sort of fashion statement. And it's sort of like people reading because they want to be seen reading rather than reading because they enjoy it. And I just think we need to enjoy hobbies again. This is going off on another little bit of a tangent. It's not quite where I thought the video was going to go. But I've noticed recently that everything that people do for fun now has to be a sort of side hustle, or you have to commodify it in some way. So I do a lot of, when it comes to Christmas, I make a lot of my Christmas presents because I crochet and I knit. So for years I've been crocheting Christmas presents for my family, who have all very nicely said that I could sell it. And I'm like, yes, I could sell it, but then it wouldn't be fun, it would be work. And I like doing stuff for fun. And I realised that's the point that my reading had got to, where I was reading almost to be able to tell other people that I was reading, rather than reading because I like reading books. And I think that's also why I've not really talked about books too much on this channel, is because I didn't know where the sort of line, and also the irony of me saying I don't want to be commodifying my reading and I'm making a YouTube video about it. Not that I sort of earn anything or actually gain anything from this, other than just getting myself into a routine of being able to talk to a camera and edit a little bit and upload with a schedule. It's just quite a nice thing for me to have. But yeah, I just don't want everything that I enjoy to become a chore, because if I do that for everything, then I actually don't have anything that I can relax into. I think the only other time I've successfully managed to sort of separate my enjoyment of something from me doing something is a couple of years ago. And again, sorry for the tangent, this is just going to be a very chatty video about where my head is at with a lot of this, because I think a lot of people might be feeling the same. Just judging by what I'm seeing on social media as a whole, I thought I might as well just like throw my hat in the ring and say something. When I was growing up, I did a lot of theatre. From the age of 3, I was dancing. I did dance exams up until I was 18. I was doing musicals with the local Amdram Society from like 5 to 18, 19. And then I stopped and went to university, and then got really into going to shows. So between 2018, or from 2018 onwards, the amount of shows that I'd seen shoots through the roof, because I was just sort of enjoying consuming them. I wasn't in them. I didn't have to like be constantly thinking about rehearsals or learning things or anything like that. I could just go and enjoy something. And then once I finished university and moved back home, I had the chance to join a friend of mine's musical theatre society, and I went along for one lesson and realised that it just wasn't for me anymore. It was just something that, like, I really like going to shows. I love being able to go and see shows, but the thought of being in one again actually sort of fills me with dread. And I'm not sure whether that's just because I've been away from it for so long and getting back into the swing of that is quite daunting. Or whether it is because in my brain now musicals and theatre is a thing that I enjoy as a viewer rather than a participant in it. So I think that sort of split, when I realised that was when I sort of made the connection between me overthinking reading as a hobby, because that is what it is. It's a hobby, it's nothing else. And I've read some really fantastic books this year, so even though I might not have read as many, I've read some really, really good ones. And because I'm sort of picking books that I really like, or that really sort of speak to me on the shelf, there's much less of me picking things up because I'm seeing it everywhere and I'm reading it and going, well, that was a waste of time and money. But I'd be interested to hear what other people think about this, sort of in as blunt a way as you want to say it. I feel like I've been quite frank in this, and I know a lot of other people who are much more eloquent than me have put out videos saying similar things but not quite the same. So yeah, if anyone has any thoughts and they want to share them, let me know, because I would really like to talk to people about this, and whether you feel like you're almost hitting like reading fatigue, because it's not something that should drain you to that extent. I know some books are heavy. I know a book that really slowed down my reading this year, not because I didn't enjoy it, but because I had to really think about it, because it was quite a dense book, was Babel by R.F. Kuang. And I really, really enjoyed it, but I couldn't read that any faster than I did. I think it took me about a month and a half to get through that, because it was so dense and, to use a term I use a lot, thinky. You had to think about a lot of it. It sort of forced me to slow down. And once I'd done that, and I was already behind, and Storygraph was very helpfully telling me that I needed to read 8 books to get back on track or something. Once I'd already hit that point, I thought, well, why not just do this for all books? Why not just enjoy them and understand them and really sit with them? Because I'm sure the authors would prefer you do that. So that is, yeah, that's where I'm at with my reading. But so yeah, it's only a short video for me today, and it might not be super eloquent, but like I said, I just want to get into the habit of uploading on a Saturday, and I want to keep up the habit of talking to the camera. Again, not sure what my next one is going to be, but I am going to have some more footage for it because I have a really nice weekend coming up where I'm going to Chichester and I'm going to London for a theatre trip, and I'm also going to some Christmas markets, which will be lovely, so I will take some videos of that. At the end of my last video, I said I didn't like the type of video that I'd done where I'd sort of taken little clips of my day and then sat down and talked about it at the end, and it's not much, but so far it is my best performing video on YouTube, so I'm thinking that maybe I need to just try it again and see if I can make it better. I think the reason I didn't like it is because it was all in London, it was a one-day trip, and I am really conscious of getting my phone out in London, so I didn't have that much sort of really interesting footage. But this trip I should be able to get some, so maybe I'll do a nice little festive weekend video and I will get that up for you next Saturday. After that, my content is going to get very festive, so we will be heading into December then. And I have some ideas of videos that I want to do in December, so I'm definitely going to do a theatre roundup of the year. So I'm going to go through all the shows that I've been to see, where I've been to see them, what I thought of them, because after this Saturday I don't have any more shows booked. I can't promise I'm not going to go to the theatre again, but I don't have anything else booked for this year. I also want to do a reading roundup where I'll go through all of the books that I read this year and just talk through them in a little bit of detail, just to sort of go over what I thought and what I want to read next year as well. So I'll do a little bit of a TBR video. That's probably all going to be one thing. And yeah, everything else I think is just going to be, if I've been on a festive day out somewhere and I have some video, I will put that up. So at the moment, that's the plan, but it might change as the plan changed with this one, but I didn't want to not upload something now that I've got into the swing of it. But yeah, I think that is pretty much all I wanted to say. So thanks for watching if you got to this point. You probably didn't, because this is the rambliest video ever. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to save this with an edit, but who knows, it'll definitely be going up. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you want to subscribe, please do. Just because you're there already, you may as well press subscribe. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up as well, and I will see you next week. Bye.